Apple makes some high quality products that work pretty seamlessly together, but there's one aspect of almost all their products that just doesn't work, and that's Siri, Apple's AI voice assistant that I personally never use because about half the time Siri responds with, "Sorry, I don't understand," or "You'll need to unlock your iPhone first," or "Something went wrong, please try again." And when Siri does understand what I'm asking, it usually gives the wrong answer, like playing a song instead of a playlist, showing Mount Oreb instead of Mount Rushmore, or finding the right restaurant chain but in the wrong city. I think most Apple users have had frustrating experiences like this, and it's odd considering Siri was not only the first AI voice assistant on a smartphone, but the best during its first few years on the market. So, how did Apple fumble their lead so badly? And why haven't they been able to catch up with the competition after 14 years? Well, one of the biggest problems was that Apple may have been too early to the AI game. A company called Siri Inc. began development of their voice assistant in 2007, and it was released as an iPhone app in 2010, which caught the attention of Steve Jobs, who wanted to acquire Siri Inc. and use their technology in iOS. The deal was made, and the headlining feature of iPhone 4S was a new voice assistant called Siri, and it was pretty mind blowing. At the time, the only voice capabilities we'd experienced were things like voice control, but that was just speech recognition technology. With Siri, it seemed like you could ask it just about anything. And Apple introduced it as an AI feature, but looking back, that wasn't technically true. Because originally, Siri used what was essentially a command and control system, where it recognized pre programmed words and phrases like "What's the weather tomorrow?" and responded with a pre programmed action. Now, that doesn't mean its technology wasn't advanced, because at the time it was the most comprehensive command and control system on the market. It was even programmed to recognize words that may sound different but have the same meaning. So, asking "What's the weather in 24 hours?" would give the same response as "What's the weather tomorrow?" That was a pretty big deal, but it was a simulation of artificial intelligence at best, because everything Siri understood and replied with was pre programmed. According to a former Apple engineer, Siri's database contains a gigantic list of words, including the names of musical artists and locations like restaurants in nearly 2 dozen languages. That made it one big snowball. If someone wanted to add a word to Siri's database, it just goes in one big pile. That's why if you asked Siri something that wasn't pre programmed, it would respond with, "Sorry, I don't understand," or "Sorry, I can't help with that." And having to micromanage every potential interaction a user might have with Siri became overwhelming. Even simple updates like adding new phrases could take up to 6 weeks, while more complex features like new search tools could take a year, which is probably why development of Siri appeared slow. After its first year, Apple only added sports knowledge and movie information to Siri, with other years resulting in no improvements at all. By 2016, other companies had not only caught up to Siri, but surpassed it. Microsoft Cortana, Amazon Alexa, and Google Assistant were all built with machine learning technology from their inception, designed to understand a user's intent instead of simply reciting a pre programmed response. In 2017, Apple began incorporating these elements into Siri, but the assistant continued to be burdened by its underlying outdated programming. And this became very apparent when the original team who created the original Siri app went on to make a new voice assistant called Viv, which was able to write and execute code in real time based on a user's question, while Siri still relied on pre-programmed responses. It could also handle multi-step contextual questions better than Siri. Viv was eventually acquired by Samsung and used to build their Bixby assistant, as Apple fell even further behind. And in 2022, ChatGPT set a new bar for AI that made Siri look ancient. It was based on a new technology called large language models, or LLMs, which could be trained on new information far quicker than any AI technology before. But it also introduced new issues, like hallucinations, which are incorrect or misleading results caused by a variety of factors like insufficient training data, incorrect assumptions made by the model, or biases in the data used to train the model. According to current research, LLMs can fabricate information anywhere between 3 and 27% of the time, depending on the model and context, something Apple doesn't find acceptable. So instead of completely rewriting Siri on these unreliable technologies, they opted to create a number of new features powered by LLMs instead, calling it Apple Intelligence. Now this is where things get really tricky, because that means Siri is currently operating on many different technologies at the same time: the original command and control system, machine learning systems, and LLMs. But even Apple's latest AI technology has been hit or miss. Some features like cleanup in photos works reliably, while notification summaries has been such a disaster that Apple had to remove the feature completely. So when Apple announced plans to use their unreliable AI technology to power Siri, many were skeptical, including people within Apple, like software executive Craig Federighi, who said there were too many bugs and complications in the backend of Siri that needed solved before a new version could be released. And it seems like they were right, because on March 7th, Apple said, "We've also been working on a more personalized Siri, giving it more awareness of your personal context, as well as the ability to take action for you within and across your apps. It's going to take us longer than we thought to deliver on these features, and we anticipate rolling them out in the coming year." But some inside Apple's AI team allegedly believe that Siri may have to be rebuilt from the ground up, which would delay its release until 2026 or even 2027. Keep in mind, this next generation Siri was not only announced in June 2024, but advertised, with TV ads and social media videos featuring the next generation Siri. Now, after they announced its delay, Apple removed these videos, but it's prompted a conversation about vaporware, when a product or service is advertised but not yet available, whether because it's just a concept or still being developed. The ethics of advertising a new iPhone or MacBook alongside a feature that doesn't exist yet and may not exist for years is questionable at best. It only misleads, confuses, and disappoints customers. But Apple's likely jumping the gun since they're already so far behind the competition, especially since Amazon just announced their new Alexa Plus last month, which brings LLMs to their AI assistant, remembering details about you for future conversations, like only recommending restaurants with meat-free options if you mentioned being vegetarian in the past. It can also perform tasks like requesting an Uber or booking plane tickets. Its contextual search is also impressive. By describing a music video you saw, Alexa can actually figure out which song was featured in that video. You'd imagine these technologies would have been introduced by Apple, the company who pioneered smartphone voice assistants, but instead they're still struggling to catch up with AI features from 2 years ago. The only path forward that makes sense to me is a complete rewrite of Siri, since its foundational technologies don't appear to be good enough anymore. And Apple should treat their next generation Siri as a completely new feature, not something that's tacked on to existing code. It's important Apple take time to get this right, even if it takes until 2028, or they risk falling so far behind in the AI race they can no longer catch up. This is Greg with Apple Explained. Thanks for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next video.